Hey, some time ago we talked about singleton pattern. Then I mentioned that instead of singleton you should think of using service locator. And today we are going to talk about service locator. Service locator pattern is quite similar to the singleton pattern as it can be used to provide global access. The main difference is that with service locator we are not going to try to control the life cycle of the services. The pattern has only a single responsibility, to locate a service and return it to the client. So, the main intent of service locator is to provide a global point of access to a service without coupling users to the concrete class that implements it. Pay attention to global point of access and coupling. These are the key features of using service locator pattern. And the structure of service locator pattern is not that complex at all. We have the main class service locator, which has the field for service, and this field is provided with this provide method. So we are providing a service with this provide method and getting this with this get concrete service method. So we can create any kinds of services. We can create audio service, logging service. It depends what you want in your game or application, and then you can use service locator pattern to provide services globally. But there can be times when you do not have specific service you want to access. For example, you want to access an audio system, but the game object or the object of audio system is destroyed in some ways. Don't know why. But what to do then if you have this kind of a problem? You have actually two main ideas, solutions to this. Plan A is to check for null and exit early. So you can see if you're trying to get this score service, you call services.score. If score is null, then you return and you don't continue with your code. And this is good. It's good to write in this way because it makes it is easy to understand. If something is null, then you return and the code breaks from here. Of course, you can use the classic if else, but I think this is a nice way to write something. Plan B is to use null service, and with null service this means creating a class, but this class and its inherited methods and fields from base service class are empty. This will not give you any functionality, but it won't crash your game. So it's good to know. Actually, in your homework you are also going to create null services when you're implementing the service locator pattern, because you do not want any fancy and complex logic in your homework. You just want to know what this pattern is and how it's constructed. But how can the locator find the services? Option A is to use dependency injection. And this means that outside code registers it, the service. It's the most common use case in games using service locator pattern. It's fast and simple because we just return a pointer. We can control how the provider is constructed. We can change the service while the game is running. However, the locator depends on outside code, which is bad when some part of code that is dealing with registering a service is not actually acting correctly. Also, it's easy to break and it introduces temporal coupling. So some pros, but a lot of cons using this. But you can use it if you like. But option B is to bind it to a compile time. At compile time. The idea here is that the location process actually occurs at compile time using preprocessor macros. It's also fast, and we can guarantee the service is available but we can't change the service easily because binding happens at build time. So you can see an example like this. This is how we start with the compilation, and then we are going to initialize the service. And finally, our plan C is to configure it at runtime. Typically this means loading a configuration file that identifies the provider and then using reflection to instantiate that class at runtime. For us, this means we can swap out the service without recompiling. Non-programmers can change the service also. The same code base can support multiple configurations simultaneously. However, all of this is complex because you need some configuration system and locating the service takes time. So again, a lot of good, but with some bad things. So when you are thinking about which option to use, then I recommend you to not overkill it. Just use what you see, what seems to be logical to your game or systems. And small comparison with Service Locator and Singleton. As you can see that Singleton and Service Locator are both globally provide global access, but with Singleton we have lifecycle with single object, and this Singleton actually deals with this lifecycle. With Service Locator we don't have to deal with the lifecycle of a service. Singleton can't be null, Service Locator can. We can create null objects, and this actually was quite helpful. Unit testing Singleton is really messy. Not going to recommend you to do it at all, because it has the same problems like global variable does. But with Service Locator you can actually use decorators and null objects. This means that it is possible to do unit testing quite well. So with Singleton we initialize it lazily. With Service Locator we use Dependency Injection. Or we had actually some other examples, but this is the main how we initialize it. And with Singleton we have two responsibilities, as you can remember, if you can remember. And this breaks our single responsibility principle, but with Service Locator we have only one responsibility, which is good in object-oriented programming. And actually that was all that I wanted to talk about Service Locator. Your task is to read the Service Locator chapter from Game Programming Patterns book and CGLearn, and then finally do the Service Locator tasks in CGLearn and in Teams.